Hey everyone, this is Joey with 22 Halo Media. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Once you create an account, you will want to click Create and then click Droplets and then choose the region closest to you. We'll be choosing Rocky for the image and I'll just use the default, but you could probably get by with at least 2 gigs of RAM. Now we need to add an SSH key. It gives you the command that you need to run here. So you'll want to open up a PowerShell window or terminal, go into your SSH folder, and then use that command SSH keygen. Personally, don't want to name it ID underscore RSA, so I'm just going to copy the path and paste it and put in WG for short for WireGuard. That's going to create a public key and a private key. So now what we want to do is cat out that private key, or I mean public key, and copy the contents and paste it and name it. And then we're going to create the droplet. And something I should note is you don't need to use DigitalOcean to follow along with this guide. You can use any cloud provider. You could even use, bare metal machine. One thing to note is that we are using like a centralized setup of WireGuard, so you will need a public IP address. And I'll explain why we're using a gateway for a peer-to-peer VPN later, just in a little bit. First, we're going to get signed in to our VPS, and you got to specify the key with -I SSH, and then put in that private key. Add it to your known hosts file. First thing we're going to do is follow some best practices. Just add a user. I'm going to name it 22Halo. And then I'm going to use the command usermod and add the group wheel to 22Halo. This just makes it a pseudo user. I'm also going to give it a password. And we will also copy over the authorized keys file. So that's going to be in .sh. And first we have to make a directory actually. So, well, I guess we're copying the entire directory, so I'll be fine. So we're going to copy .sh to home 22Halo, and then it's going to be recursive. And then we need to change the ownership to 22Halo for home 22Halo.sh. And let's just check the permissions to make sure that we don't accidentally lock ourselves out. Now we will be able to get logged in. Oh yeah, I forgot to use the recursive. So I would have locked myself out if I were to be reliant on signing in. So now you can see that 22Halo owns the authorized keys file. So that is done. Next thing we want to do is just not allow root to log in remotely. So it's just we're going to use vi etc ssh sshd underscore config / and then just search for permit. And then we have this line permit root login. You can either comment it out or just replace yes with no. Vi can be a little tricky to use. I'm not going to do like a full tutorial. You could use Vi Tutor or use a different text editor if you have problems with Vi. All right, so at this point, we just need to reload at the SSH server. And I typically will leave a root session open when I first sign in just to make sure I don't lock myself out, because I would have earlier if I were to, not allow root for login and then log out and try to sign in and the authorized keys file was still owned by root. I wouldn't have been able to sign in. I would have locked myself out of the VPS. So I'm going to log in as 22Halo at that IP and then put in the private key, which is located in our SSH folder. It's called WG. So we are signed in now. So the first thing I'm going to do is just install a package called EPL. I think that's the package name. Let me check in my document I authored. So it's EPL release, and that's extra packages for Enterprise Linux. and then we will start upgrading all the packages with sudo dnf upgrade-y. This will take a little bit. I'll get logged out of root, and you'll see if I try to sign in as root now, it's going to say permission denied because we don't allow root for remote login anymore. So while our packages are upgrading, I'm just going to read through the introduction of this article. This is the URL. I'll also have it in the description if you want to read through it yourself. Right away, it links to the actual WireGuard webpage where you can read quite a bit more into WireGuard than this tutorial I wrote, which is really just a getting started guide. So WireGuard is a free and open source peer-to-peer virtual private network. It's kind of an alternative to conventional VPNs that have large code bases. And since it's a peer-to-peer VPN, each computer that's added to the network communicates directly with each other. But this guide is using a hub-spoke model, which means there is like a centralized server. Really, it's just a WireGuard peer that all traffic is being passed through. It has a public IP address. It acts as a gateway to pass all traffic because there's something called carrier grade NAT. And if you're trying to connect two separate computers on two separate networks across the internet and they're behind carrier grade NAT, you're not going to be able to find the private IP address because it's hiding behind that public IP address without some sort of common gateway too. So the easiest way to get a VPS with an IP address is just spinning up a virtual private server on any sort of cloud provider. Google Cloud does offer a free E2 micro instance. My experience, the RAM is so little on that, it makes the experience not that great. I would try to get something with at least 2 gigs of RAM. DigitalOcean does provide a 90-day free trial. AWS and Azure, they both have free trials. If you're a student, you can get quite a big free trial, I think up to a year. So any cloud provider will work. That's probably going to be a more realistic way of doing this tutorial since not everyone has a bunch of public IP addresses available to use. So the prerequisites and assumptions is just you need to be able to run commands as a root user or use sudo for privileges, and you need a Rocky Linux system with a publicly accessible IP address. You can use WireGuard on any distro. We're just using Rocky Linux because the guide is written for the Rocky Linux documentation website, and Rocky Linux is great. All right, so we're just waiting for these packages to finish up upgrading. And the next thing we're going to do is install WireGuard tools. You can create multiple WireGuard VPNs on the same machine. Each one just needs a different configuration file, a different network address, and a different UDP port assigned. I will get more into that as we actually start making progress on the tutorial. All right, so the package is finished upgrading. Let's install WireGuard. This is sudo dnf install WireGuard-tools -y. Very not that big of a package, so it'll install pretty fast. And then we just need to create a folder for a WireGuard files, and we're gonna put it in the etc directory. Then we're gonna create a configuration file named wg0.conf. It's pretty common naming convention that for each interface, it's WG0, another one would be WG1, WG2, so on and so forth. Now we're going to generate a new key pair, and you just to walk through this command, it uses the WireGuard tools and generates a private key. We use T to put the contents of that. We pipe it in the T and put in a new file we just created called WG0. And then we pipe the private key into a command called public key, which uses the private key to make the public key. And we pipe that into T, which is going to output the contents into a folder wg0.pub in that same WireGuard directory. So let's just paste that in there. And you can see we have our public key right here. The private key is hidden. Now we're going to open up our configuration file, wg0.conf, and just copy and paste this configuration content right here. I'm going to remove this placeholder server _ private key, and we're going to get the private key. We'll be right back in here. So So just cat etc WireGuard wg0, and then I've got to put in sudo. Only root can access this etc folder. So just sudo exclamation exclamation to rerun it as sudo. And we will copy this private key and then go back to Vi, and we're going to insert the private key. And now we got to replace this placeholder right here. You can use any network address that is on the private range of IP addresses. You probably don't want to use a network address that's very common because it'll conflict if you try to connect that peer to the network, like 192.168.1.0. It's not a very good network address to use since almost every home network uses it, for example. So for this guide, we're going to use 10.255.255.1 for the gateway, but our network address is, whoops, accidentally repeated all that information. Let me go in the visual mode real quick, delete some of that. .1/24. There we go. We're gonna write and quit. So we need to enable port forwarding now. We're going to enable it for, or IP forwarding, sorry, not port forwarding. What this does is it allows internal devices on this VPS to communicate with each other. So we're going to turn it on for IP version 4 and IP version 6. We're only using IP version 4 on this VPS, but if we enabled IP version 6, the forwarding would already be turned on. And we need to configure firewall D. It's not installed by default, so we'll just go ahead and install it. Once it's installed, you'll need to enable it. And then we're going to add a port. 51820 is the UDP port used by default. You can use any UDP port for your WireGuard tunnel. Now we just need to allow traffic through the interface we created earlier, WG0. So this is an internal interface. And now we're going to masquerade the internal traffic so it just shows the VPS's public IP and not the private IP of each peer. And we will reload the firewall now. And now it's time to configure the WireGuard peers. So I'm just going to move this off screen for the moment. I have a Rocky 9 desktop that we're going to use as a peer. I also have a Windows 10 desktop we'll use as a peer, but we're going to do the Rocky machine first. So we got to do some steps similar to earlier. Make a WireGuard directory. And then we're going to create a configuration file. And then we're going to generate a key pair. So these are all, commands that we just ran for the server. Now we got to do it for the peer. And I forgot to install WireGuard on this peer. So what we need to do real quick is sudo dnf install EPL release y, and then sudo dnf install WireGuard tools -y. And still installing. Okay, so now we can run that command to generate the keys. And we're going to edit the configuration file with vi etc WireGuard wg0.conf. And we're going to copy and paste this information right here. And there's some placeholders, the private key and public key and the server IP. So all these placeholders, we need to replace with the actual content. So the first thing to do is just write and quit, and then I'm going to sudo at Etsy WireGuard WG0 to get that private key, and we'll copy it. So Control Shift C to copy, and we'll go up to our private key placeholder and paste that in. Just right. And next we need to enter in the public key. So what we need to do is open up our server. And I'll just copy the command here, but it just cats the public key. And we'll copy the public key of our gateway slash server. But remember, everything is just a peer on a WireGuard network. We just pass all traffic through this through the gateway. That way, computers that are behind carrier grade NAT can still talk to each other. And lastly, we need to put in the server IP. Now, I put in a command here that just greps for the server's IP. We'll use that just to follow along with the guide, but you could just grab the IP from when you SSH into the server or from DigitalOcean or your cloud provider. But this is just going to list out your interfaces, and we need this public IP address right here. So I'll copy that, and then we'll paste that right here. And the default port is 51820, and persistent keep alive just pings the gateway every 25 seconds. That way the VPN tunnel never closes. All right, so now we can enable WireGuard VPN. So we're going to create a system D service. So sudo systemctl enable wg quick at wg0, creates a symlink to create that service, and then sudo systemctl start wg-quick at wg-wg0. That actually starts the WireGuard server. So if I do sudo wg, you can see that that WireGuard interface is running now. It is sending data to the server, but there's no handshake yet because we haven't finished setting up the tunnel. So we'll do the same thing on the server here. We'll enable, and we will start it up. And then if we do a sudo wg, again, you'll see that it is running. There is no handshake, and there's no peer added yet. So the next thing we're going to do is add the client's key to the WireGuard server configuration. So we need to output the public key, sudo cat etsy WireGuard wg0.pub, and copy this public key. We could have copied it from the WireGuard configuration too, but we'll just copy it there. And we're going to use this command. Now, I will note that this is just a temporary configuration, so I'm going to show you how to use this command to set it up, but I will also show you how to do it so it's permanent. So sudo wg set, then you put the interface in, and then you have to put in peer, and then you put in the peer's public key, and then you put in allow IPs, and it's going to be 10.255.255.2. And now the WireGuard tunnel should be active. Yes, so now you can see that there is actually data that is transferring, and if I do ping 10.255.255.2, you'll see that there is data being transferred, that ping request is coming through and over that WG0 interface. And the same thing here. If I do ping dot 10.255 dot 255 dot 2 or 1, it is also pinging just like that. All right, so I will quit that. What I'm going to do is open up our Windows 10 machine, and we will go over how to do this on Windows to add a peer. You go to wireguard.com/install, and then you just need to download the installer and then run it. And you'll click Add Tunnel. Whoops. I think you have to click the drop down arrow, and then you click Add Empty Tunnel. We'll just name it WireGuard tutorial. I'm going to copy that public key again later. What we need to do is right click and edit the selected tunnel. Right now it just has the private key added, but we need to put in a peer, and we need to put in an address. This is going to be 10.255.255.3. And then for the peer, I'm going to just cat etc wireguard wg0.conf. And we'll just copy this right here. So the allowed IP is correct. The public IP, that is for the server. The endpoint's correct. Persistent keep alive is correct. So this is all good, but we do need to just copy the public key and then save that interface and then open up our server. I'm just going to go arrow up until we get to this command, and I will delete the public key here and paste it in, the one for Windows, and then put in a new peer address that we assign to it. Okay, so now if I activate this, it should start the handshake right away. Yep, you can see right away it's transferring. We can even test it out if I open up Windows PowerShell and I ping 10.255.255.1. It is going to complete that ping. Same here if I ping 10.255.255.3. It should. It said that there's some packet loss. Oh, I think that's because ICMP is probably turned off by default for the Windows host. The transfer is working. You can see here that if I go to WG, it is showing that transfer, and there was a handshake very, very recent for .3 right here. And we could also ping the Linux machine, so 10.255.255.2, and you'll get a reply here for that as well. I think that ICMP is just not allowed by default on Windows. We'd have to add a firewall rule to allow that. I can see if I can do that real quick. And, I'm just going to copy this and paste this. Going through a lot of work just to allow a ping. But okay, it added that firewall rule. You could display the output. It shows that it allows inbound pings. So if I do what I tried to do earlier and I just ping, you see that it actually is pinging the Windows host now. Here's just one use case. Let's say that you wanted to SSH into this Linux machine. You do SSH 22 Halo Media at 10.255.255.2, and you'll just have to add it to the known hosts and then putting the password. There we go. So now I'm signed in to this machine. And if I just run a who UA, you can see that I am logged in through 10.255.255.1. Technically, it's .3, but since all traffic is being passed through and masqueraded, it's going to show the gateway for the login. Only the VPS would be able to see the traffic of each peer for who it logs in, since that masquerading rule is on. Everything is networked together now through that VPN tunnel, but an issue is that we only did a temporary change. If I open up our server, our gateway, and let me open up my article as well too, and we just bring the interface down, so sudo wg quick down wg0. Let's put in the password. And then we bring it back up. Those peers are gone. So if the machine were ever to like reboot or anything like that, you would lose that data. So what we actually want to do is manually edit the file. So we'll do sudo and bring it down, and then we're going to edit the configuration file with sudo vi etc wireguard wg0.conf, and then we're going to put in a peer with a address, or no, it would be a public key and a allowed. There we go. Just going to copy this. There. And we got to put in I'll just put in the IPs first, so 10.255.255.2, and then 10.255.255.3, and we'll put in the public IP address of the Windows host in first. So you can see that that handshake isn't working anymore since it's not connected at the moment. So there's the public key for the Windows host. Now we got to put it in for the Linux host. So we'll do sudo cat etc wireguard wg0.pub. Got to put in my password. I typed it in wrong. All right. Okay, and we'll copy the public key for our Linux host and paste it. And at this point, we should be all good to go. So I'll write and quit, and I'll bring the interface up, and we'll do a sudo wg, and the so the Linux host, or I mean the Windows host is working, but the Linux host is not right now. So maybe I I entered something incorrectly for the, let me just make sure, ping.10.255.255.2. Oh no, it's communicating right. It just outputted weird. So let me do sudo wg. There we go. Yeah, it just outputted weird. I was wondering what is going on. Um, so if I do try to ping the Windows host from Linux, it's all working. I'm just gonna send a continuous ping and we'll log in. Do a sudo reboot now. Okay, there we go. So it actually was rebooting. It's just really quick because the requests are timing out. And then once it's brought back up, we'll try pinging it. Okay, so now it's brought back up. So we should still be able to ping the and you can see after rebooting, since we made a permanent configuration change, we can still ping that WireGuard server. So I hope you enjoyed this guide. It was a really quick, just introductory guide to WireGuard. You can visit their official website to learn more, and don't forget there is going to be a link for a DigitalOcean 90-day free trial. So hope you guys enjoyed, and you have a good rest of your day. Bye.